Good evening, everybody. Wanted to go ahead and review our trading session from today. Today is Thursday, September 18th. This is something I do on a regular basis after a trading day, is reviewing my trades and seeing what I could have done better. And with that being said, let's go ahead and review each candle. So you could immediately see we were in this huge uptrend overnight. We did make brand new all-time highs up here, and then we came all the way back down the VWAP and started bouncing up, and then came back to VWAP again. So the question then becomes, where do we take our next trade? And for me, the next trade right here around 9:30 open, this is 9:31, is this candle. This candle is a nice bounce off of VWAP. And by the way, this is the 800 tick chart for the micro Nasdaq futures. I really like it because it presents a lot of trading opportunities, and the candles typically are a lot smaller, so you're not risking as much as if, say, the 1 minute, 5 minute, or 15-minute candles. Um, so this is our setup right here. This is our measured move. We get in if the next candle breaks this candle higher, and our stop loss would be below this area here. So you could see we almost hit the target, came down, retested VWAP, and then we went all the way up and hit target. And now what I'd like to do is move my break even, my runner to break even, and see if we keep going higher because I'm trading multiple contracts. And so I'm moving my break even, or let me rephrase that. I'm moving my runner to the bottom of every candle that gets triggered higher. So you could see here we would have moved it here, and then boom, we got stopped out right there. So now that we broke through this downward trend line that was here, we're going to draw a new trend line, a very small one like this, and now you can see we're basically in a wedge. Um, so now I'm waiting for us to get into another level and seeing how the candles are going to interact with said level. So one of those levels are going to be this EMA right here. And so I would probably look to take this short right here because we're rejecting off of 700, and we've finally had a candle close below the 21 exponential moving average. I but I typically this trade typically should work more often than not because we got a rejection up here and we're moving down. Um, but I believe this one actually never triggered. So um, if it did trigger, we would have taken it down. Instead, we actually had this bullish candle trigger right here, but we wouldn't have taken it because we would have to get through this trend line that I drew that could potentially act as resistance. You can see here that wasn't really the case. It went up and it did end up hitting target, but I still measure it out even though I don't take it. And so this trade right here hit its target, it's moving up, and the runner, as you could see, got taken out. So now we're gonna wait until we get down to some form of a level and seeing how the candle handles it. So right here, we have a clear bearish candle that closed below 700. And as you know, a lot of the 100 levels on the Nasdaq can act as support and resistance. In this case, we're getting a clear signal to come down. The only problem is I personally wouldn't have taken it because I have the EMA right there, but it did work. I'm just marking it out, but I personally would not have taken this trade here. But I need to keep track of it. And so market is going down some more. And you could see the runner finally got taken out right there. So we're going to go ahead and delete these lines, delete this trend line, move the runner out of the way, and draw this new upward trend line here. And you can see now we're in another wedge. And so I typically don't like to take trades inside the wedge because there's a lot of indecision about whether we're going up or whether we're going down. If this triggers higher, I have to mark it, but I'm not going to take it because 700 is a potential area of resistance. And this downward trend line here could be also another area of resistance as well. But it did trigger higher. I'm going to mark it, but I am not going to take it. And it did end up hitting its target. I wouldn't call this a high probability setup by any stretch of the imagination, but right now at this point, I would be keeping track of my runner, which is right around the 700 area. Go ahead and delete these lines here. I don't need them anymore. Then my runner moves up. And basically, I keep track of the trade until the runner is finally taken out. And there it is right here. Runner has been taken out. So we draw another downward trend line. We wait for us to hit another potential zone. And the next trade that I see that triggered is this one, but I wouldn't be taking it personally because we have this upward trend line that I have drawn here that could act as support. But let's just see what happens. It ends up hitting the target anyway. I mean, I really wish there wasn't this trend line here because this is a strong bearish candle. As you can see, it also didn't technically trigger. This one didn't trigger. So, but the next candle did trigger. So this one did lower. And you could argue, well, there might be enough room to take this before we hit the upward trend line, but you're not guaranteed to hit that move right away before the trend line happens. It happened quickly here. It happened in a matter of seconds. I mean, literally, this is 9:38:23, and we hit the target at 9:38:49. So, 20 seconds or so. But again, it's not guaranteed. So I would have passed on this, but I would keep track of a runner. So let's keep going. The runner is still running. And then there we go. That runner's been taken out right here. So now we wait for our next setup. This would have been another potential setup we could have taken right here. You have a new upward trend line, a break of that trend line, and then a move lower to retest the VWAP. And it does hit target. So let's keep going here. Our runner would be about break even. Now our runner moves down here. Our runner is still running. Okay, runner finally gets taken out. And now we can draw a new upward trend line. Just delete this. This is a bigger downward trend line that we have here. And now I'm basically waiting for a candle such as this one right here that broke this downward trend line to go back down, but it never triggered. So we're just going to keep waiting and being patient. Now we're starting to break out of this downward trend line here. We still don't have a setup. This is the setup here. I'll show you what I'm talking about in just a moment. I just have to draw this trend line here because we have a lower high. But we have, we retested 650, we retested the EMA, and then we triggered lower. So technically this would be a trigger to go back down. Problem is I have this trend line in the way. So it worked, but it wasn't, it was only about 5 points. We keep track of the runner. The runner got taken out right there. And then again, we're retesting the EMA, retesting the EMA again. And now we have a clear break of the downward trend line of 650 of the EMA. So this would be my signal candle to go higher if we trigger. And we have enough distance to hit it. And basically this is the candle that I'm telling myself, okay, I think this is the candle that wants to go and retest VWAP. Let's see if that in fact happens. And unfortunately it doesn't. Like I would actually consider this a really good setup because it cleared all of that resistance below us, or I should say above us. Um, and sometimes you take a really good setup and it doesn't work, and that's okay. This is a game of probability, but this would have been a loser. And then we wouldn't be in this trade because we would have still been in this trade, but this trade is the next one that triggered and it triggered lower and it did hit target, but we still have to keep track of it. The runner just got taken out. And now we're getting, this is actually the next signal lower here is this candle, and it did work. Um, Probably shouldn't have even drawn the trend line. But anyway, we have a bearish candle, retested the EMA, trigger lower, boom, measured move hit. And now we keep track of a runner. So let's go back. Okay, now the runner's been taken out. We get to draw a new, you guessed it, trend line. And then this triggered lower. Inverted hammer, break of the trend line. This is our signal candle, triggers here, boom, 1-to-1. And our runner gets taken out here. So now we get to delete all of that. We did have a double bottom, but now it broke. There's no action for us to take here. This is our standard deviation level. It did trigger lower, but now look at where we're at. We're at 600. And again, recall what I said earlier about the 100 levels on the NQ. They act either as support or resistance over the long run because people love even numbers. And so even though this triggered lower, 600 is most likely going to act as an area of support. And you can see, boom, right there, buyers stepped in and bought this up. So knowing that 600 is an area where a lot of buyers are waiting, knowing that we held 600 and we broke through the standard deviation level, This is a potential signal to go up if it triggers, and it does, and we hit target right there. So this is a nice little 7.5 pointer right there. Could have could have gotten. And then we're going to draw an upward trend line like this. I like to draw the corners unless I'm connecting it with some other candlestick. And now you could see we retested the EMA, inverted hammer. It did trigger, but you're not going to take it. Why? Because if you look at the measured move, it has to go through this upward trend line and it has to go through the standard deviation level. So I would personally pass on this trade and instead take the bullish candle higher. So here's an example of it not hitting exactly 1-to-1, but this trade would have worked for me because typically what I do, because these are tick charts and they're not exact, I like to take profit sometimes a whole point below where the green line is. And that sometimes that also helps me get filled, especially in with the bid and the ask. You want your order to get filled. And, I don't care if I give up a whole point. I mean, that's just 20 bucks, but it's 20 bucks to guarantee that I take profit. So at 27.75, we would have gotten filled because it hit 26.75 and then it hit 27. So this trade would have worked even though it stopped out. And now we have a break of this upward trend line. Um, I personally wouldn't have taken this trade because we were still in this one, but this would be the trigger lower. I wouldn't take it because we were still above the EMA, but this trade did end up working. And now we have a higher low. We have a potential signal to go up, but we can't take it, even though I think it worked. We can't take it because we have the EMA in the way and we have the downward trend line in the way. But it did work. And now we can, because this trade worked and then stopped out, the runner did, I should say, we can take this candle now. This is a nice clear bullish candle. It's above the EMA. And let's see if the measured move is big enough. And we would take this higher. Probably would have passed on this, knowing this other trend line here, but it did end up working. Might have actually deleted this line this morning. I don't remember. And it would have just kept this trend line here, which we broke. And we're creating higher highs and higher lows. Anyway, let's keep going. So this was a winner, whether you took it or not. Keep track of where the runner is. And I believe this runner is going to go on for a while. So let's go ahead and delete everything else we don't need. And the runner is right here. Yeah, this was one heck of a runner. I believe this one was like a 61 point runner if I recall correctly. So yeah, I think we finally get stopped out. Oh, not yet. Keep going. I think we get stopped out here. Yeah. So you can see we entered down here and our runner got stopped out up there. And that was a phenomenal trade right there. Probably the trade of the day. And now that the runner has been taken out, we're going to go ahead and draw another trend line. Wait for us to get to a level. We had this level here. If it would have triggered lower, we would have taken it bearish, but it didn't. Instead, we have this really tiny wedge, and I believe it triggers higher. Nope, it didn't trigger higher. Okay, it triggered lower. Question then becomes, do we have enough room? And the answer is yes, there's enough room, so we're going to take it bearish. And I want to point out that my stop losses are a point and a quarter above where the actual red line is. So this one basically tested my stop loss and it came down and hit it. So, and the reason why I have it a point and a quarter away is because sometimes the Nasdaq will retest a stop loss area to the tick and then do exactly what it did here. And so rather than basically I'm willing to sacrifice an extra 20 plus dollars or so of risk in order to make sure that this trade actually works. And it did end up working, so that's nice. And now we are at, let me redo this trend line now. We have a potential trigger higher here. The problem is we have this EMA in the way. So I would pass on this even though we're bouncing off of VWAP. VWAP bounces are typically very strong setups, but I'm going to pass on this. And it almost worked, but it didn't work. So now we have the opposite side of the trade. We have a bearish candle that closed below VWAP. It also closed below the 650 level. Problem is we might run into this trend line that you see here that I have drawn. So I would pass on this trade. Even though I think it worked. No, it didn't work. Okay. Yeah, I would pass on this trade because of that trend line. And we basically didn't have a chance. Didn't even come close to the target. And now we have a strong bullish candle that broke through the trend line, that broke through the EMA, that broke through VWAP and closed. If we get a trigger higher, we're taking it because our measured move is going to be right around 700, right below it. So what this candle is telling me is buyers are wanting to go and retest 700, and let's see what happens. And that's exactly what we did. We went all the way and hit 700 here. When taking bigger candles like this, because you can see this candle is bigger than most candles that we've seen in the last, 20, 30 minutes or so. I typically downsize as well, maybe cut my risk in half by cutting my contracts in half as well to to take a to be able to take a trade like this and not, get have it hurt my P&L if I'm wrong. And that's really important too. And so we're going to go ahead and update this upward trend line here. Our runner is right there below 700, and I believe this kept going. Yep. And then we had 10 o'clock news, so this trade was still going. And then we had our first test of the standard deviation level. It couldn't close above it. In fact, we triggered lower. And this would have been a quick scalp for about 5 points or so. And then to retest 700 essentially. And then Here, so now we're going to have a runner that's still running. Um, Runner got taken out. We have this downward trend line. So even though this is a really strong candle and we potentially have buyers here at 700, I would be a little iffy about taking it here because of the standard deviation that acted as resistance earlier and this downward trend line. It didn't trigger anyway. Instead, we got an actual bearish trigger below 700, but we have the EMA here in the way. So would not take this bearish. And as you can see, it didn't work anyway. And then now you have a bullish trigger higher that we wouldn't have been in because we're paying attention to the bearish move. And then this ended up working. And then what's nice is you could potentially also take a trade here because we finally broke through the standard deviation level for VWAP and closed above it. So you could potentially take this trade higher as well. And it did end up working. And I'm not sure if it went up and then came down. If that's the case, I think the runner at this point would have been taken out right about there. We have this trend line. Nothing really new, nothing to take here. We're just waiting. You could take this trade right there. Hold on. If I drew the downward trend line, this never triggered, so you would draw this line, and this would be your signal candle to go higher. As you could see, it hit target and it kept going higher here. You could take these trend line breaks when you're not near any areas of support and resistance, and you want to see where the market wants to keep going. Right now, we have a runner that's going higher. Runner finally gets taken out. And now we have another potential setup to go higher. Again, trend line break, candle that closes above it, measured move before right around 50. And boom, hits 50 right there. This is another like six and three-fourth points, 6.75 points right there. We'll keep track of the runner. Think the runner finally got taken out right there. Okay. Now we're getting close to a potential area here that we should be paying attention to. I should probably be drawing an upward trend line. It would have looked like this. We wouldn't have taken this here because we have 750 and the EMA in the way. But now you can see this inverted hammer rejection off the 750 level, excuse me. The EMA, we're in a downtrend here. We would take this lower if it triggered. And I believe, let's see if I think it's going to be a stop loss. Yeah. This was an unfortunate stop. But I like the setup. Um, if I probably had to redraw my lines, maybe I would have even if I redrew it like this, maybe I don't take it because you had a pivot here and then you could have updated it with this line. So maybe we could have avoided that trade. But I think in the heat of the moment, it's kind of hard to put everything together sometimes, and it's okay to make mistakes. So in this case, we did get stopped out, and that's okay. It's part of trading. You can't get every single trade right. So now we have really strong signal candle here. It's above this immediate trend line, above the EMA, above 750. I would take it higher for a retest of this high right there. And boom, we hit target. The runner's still going. The runner is still going. And then finally, the runner's been taken out. Delete these lines here. You could potentially draw another line like this. And now we wait until we get to another level. And here is the level. Unfortunately, I don't know if I could take it because of this trend line that I drew here. But if the trend line wasn't there, you would take this, and it did end up working. And then here we have another trigger lower, but we wouldn't take it because we have the 750 level and this other trend line. So I don't, yeah, it doesn't work. And now we have a clear bullish candle. Again, retesting the highs up here. It did trigger. And boom, hitting target. Runner kept going and finally taken out right there. So this is about 10:27. This is about an hour of trading from market open. And if you would have kept track of all of our trades and you only traded um, one and you only traded one mini without the runners, just to keep math simple. Let's see, you would have taken 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 setups. So 13 trades. And out of those 13 trades, we had one, two losers. So our winners, 11 winners out of 13 trades. So our win rate was actually 84.6%. That's very, very, very good. And then let's add up how many points we actually made if you just traded one mini with no runners. I'm just adding it up here real quick for you guys. You would have made the equivalent of 66 points, which if you multiply that by 20, That's $1,300 without commission. Not too bad for trading 1 hour and basically doing scalping. I hope you guys have enjoyed this. If you have any questions, please leave me a comment. Be more than happy to answer it. And I hope you enjoyed my style of trading. I think it's a little bit different than what other people are doing online. And I hope you found this useful and educational. And we'll talk real soon. Have a great rest of your week.